on this computer. Buenos días, and welcome to Cafecito Tempranito con Tayrin. And today we have the beautiful and talented Ashley Melendez-Middleton, owner of the Middleton Center. And welcome, Ashley.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I'm grateful. Like, that's probably the best word that I can say right now, how I feel to be here. So thank you.
And I'm so excited and honored that you are here with us. And today we are going to speak on embracing your roots as an Afro-Latina and what that intersection of Afro-Latina identity means, right? But also in that, making sure that we're touching on individuals who inspired you throughout your life, who that maybe female individual would be, maybe multiple, because I think it's important in celebration of Women's History Month that we identify that. But first, I want to make sure I celebrate you, Women's History Month. Thank you for everything that you do, everything that you've been a part of, and everything that I know you're going to continue to do. So thank you so much.
I received that. Thank you so much. You know, sometimes as ladies, we have a hard time just saying, I received that. So
yes, sometimes we have to definitely pat ourselves on the back. We have to be our number one fans ourselves, and give ourselves our credit when the credit is due.
You got it. Yeah.
So tell me, Ashley, tell me a little bit more about the Middleton Center first.
Yeah. Okay. So, and in the process of, going, like, you reaching out to me, the name of my business has changed.
Okay.
It's called Radiate Coaching and Development.
Yes.
So let me tell you, okay. Originally, I started my business December 26, 2022. And that happened after I left my job. There was a lot of restructuring, and I had the opportunity to take severance from this corporate job.
Okay.
And for such a long time, I'm telling you, like I can't even tell you how long, because I think it's almost the entire time that I was at my last job, which was about 16 years. I wanted to do something more. I knew that there was something more for me to be doing. And I guess over time, I didn't really know what that was. So I was just gaining an education, gaining knowledge, gaining experience, and I was in leadership. And what I did then was I supported rising leaders in defining, what does success look like for you? Where do you want to go? What is your leadership style? What are your values? What are the things that that speak to you? Because once you can define those things, then you're able to really kind of pave the way for where your career should go, or like where you want to be as a professional, whatever that term means to you. So when my corporate job decided to do this restructuring, I knew that there was something else I was supposed to be doing. So I was like, this is my opportunity. Let me take this chance. Let me literally like step out on faith and like bet on myself, So then I was like, this is my time. So at that moment, I was like, I'm going to take this severance. I have 6 months to figure it out, because they gave me a pretty good severance package.
Wow.
Where I was like able to get pay and insurance until like the end of the year. Like it was really good. So I decided, I was like, the Middleton Center, I'm going to open up a business, a coaching business called the Middleton Center. And it's going to be all of the things that I love about my job, which were supporting rising leaders, letting them know, like, you don't have to define your success based on someone else's definition of success. You don't have to be professional based on what white America thinks you have to be. And I'm going to be completely honest. That's like one of the things that I think we as people of color, we struggle with, right? Like we are like, I have to conform.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. You can wear your hair curly. You can laugh louder than socially acceptable. You can be a loving supervisor, or you could be whatever you want to be. And so I decided with the Middleton Center that I would begin coaching people, but specifically I wanted to go into schools And I wanted to get like help support them in finding their voice and defining these things early. Because if you know this stuff about yourself earlier, you're going to be able to make better decisions about your career. You're going to be able to make, more informed decisions. So you don't have to make all the mistakes that all of us have made coming up, like when I'm uncomfortable interviewing. So I'm not going to interview, or I'm going to like crash and burn until I get good at it. Like, no, practice. That's what, so that's where the Middleton Center started. And then last year I was going through like my own personal spiritual journey. And I realized that a lot of what I was explaining was really just getting comfortable and confident in who you are as a human, right? And myself. And then and then the other side of it is the spirituality of like what we put out into the world just comes right back to us, right? Right. So it's just this never ending flow of energy, right? And so now, and I've always been very energetically sensitive, spiritually sensitive. And always my coaching, whenever I would coach people, it would always go to this like, what do you feel in your spirit? Like, what do you feel in your spirit? So now Radiate Coaching and Development is really like helping people tap into what is within them. And so that they know that like the goodness of everything that they're receiving started from there. Like we're not without anything. We are equipped with every single thing that we need. We just have to remember that it starts with us and that it's there. So then we just flow. We give it out and then it comes back, and we give it out and then it comes back. So that it's RADI and then 8, like an infinity symbol.
I love that.
Like you can see that visual representation of flowing out and coming back. So now I want to still do the educational support for the students in schools, but really, it's really about coaching and mentorship for people, specifically women, more specifically women of color, so that we can start to define success for ourselves, but also know that it starts within us.
Yes.
And all I do is just ask really good questions. We just sit down and we talk, and I'm a coach, and just like ask really good questions to get you to think about something a little bit differently, to think about your success, your professionalism, your path, just a little different. So that's awesome. What Radiate is.
Yeah, that is awesome and very much needed.
Long-winded response, but
that's okay. That's okay. It explains to everybody exactly what you do. Our listeners need to know exactly what that means. I feel like more information is better than very little information and leaves you with like, okay, so I don't know what that person does.
Like what?
It left you at hello. So I'd rather have more information that really explains it, because it means that you're passionate about it, that is your why. And it's very important to showcase your why and to really talk about that, because it really then shows our heart and where our mind and our vision is looking to, right? So as visionaries, it's very important that we are showcasing and really explaining what is it that we're doing. But that is very beautiful, and thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
So in celebration of Women's History Month, we were talking about embracing our roots, right? Recently, I have come into a few conversations where some people may feel like Latinas evolving. Just the word Latinas is specifically for just those individuals who are just Latinas. And in their definition of who a Latina is somebody who was just born either in Puerto Rico or Mexico, somebody who's specifically from a Hispanic descent, fully, completely, both in mother and father household or cultures. And that's incorrect. As the world has evolved, so have our cultures. And a lot of us are very bicultural. Not only that, but in many within our even own cultures, example, I'm Puerto Rican. Puerto Ricans come from a very diverse cultural background, African American, from Spain, from all those areas. And it's evident in our music. It's evident in the way we look,
Food.
the food.
Oh my gosh, yes.
None of us look like a specific person. For the
Mhm.
most part, you have a lot of individuals who are like brown skin, but you have a lot of individuals who are maybe darker brown or a lighter, brown,
Yeah.
or even that look white, but they're Latinos.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important for the world to understand that we need to do better
Yeah.
in embracing our identity as Latinos, that there are Afro Latinos, that there are white Latinos, there are Asian Latinos, there are many Latinos that are bicultural,
Yeah.
and that they need to be accepted as well into people of color and into being Hispanics. Just because my oldest is Hispanic, both of his parents, both his father and I are Puerto Rican. Um, but his grandfather from his father's side had always had a way more fair skinned.
Okay.
So my oldest, even though he has some kind of color, he kind of reverts, kind of back to the lighter skinned Hispanic.
Yeah.
Now, over the summer, he does gain a little bit more color and so forth, but he doesn't speak the language. And many individuals, because he doesn't speak the language, people of color, not just white people of color will say to him, "You're not Latino enough."
Yeah.
And making sure that we need to stop that, even within our own cultures, that we need to stop saying you're not Latino enough just because you don't speak the language, or just because you're bicultural, just because maybe you weren't raised in it, even though you are. So I know that you and I had this conversation about you were raised in a household with your mom is African American, your father is Hispanic, but you were raised in a household with a single mom. So you raised mostly with the culture of
Yeah.
African American. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes. And this is the other thing too. Like who creates the bar? This is, if you're Latino, if you have this much, you look like this, like you got to reach
Percentage,
this
yeah.
bar, right? You got to reach this bar. Like the girl, I don't reach that bar,
Yeah, no, you're just
but
Latino. That's it.
right. So that's one thing that's hard in culture in general, right? Like we got to stop creating these like imaginary lines where if you don't get there, you're not. But so for me, my mom, yeah, my mom is Black, African American, and I will tell you, when I think about myself growing up, I I didn't really, I knew that I was Puerto Rican, but I didn't speak the language, but my mom did.
Oh, wow.
Which so she grew up with a lot of like Puerto Rican friends. Obviously, all of my titis, my dad, everybody, like that side of, she was deeply entrenched into that side of my family. So even though my dad wasn't around, and my dad and I, we are so good. So I don't want to, paint the picture that he was never around.
Yes.
We're in my adulthood, I think I understand him a lot more now. Especially like in the last couple of years, I understand him so much more, because we could talk about parents maybe another time, but
they're humans too.
yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Like they were humans before us. Like before we came, they had their own lives, they had their own things. But my mom, she was deeply entrenched into Puerto Rican culture, and I think that she never wanted me to not know that. Like she made a point to speak to me in Spanish, and sometimes, right? But it was always only when I was in trouble though.
When your full government name comes out.
Yes. Like why do we all live the same life? Like why do all of our moms do that? But yeah,
I do the same thing to my dog.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So my dog, his name is Miko, and he has my last name because I had him before I was married. So his Miko Melendez. I'm like, Miko Melendez. But yes. So growing up, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. I didn't feel like look at, he's coming in now, my dog.
Yeah, because you called his name. Yeah.
I did. I didn't feel like I was missing anything, but I also didn't I didn't speak. So when my mom spoke to me, I didn't speak back to her.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would go to stay overnight on the weekends with my titis, we would listen to music and we would eat food and all this stuff, but there was still this little bit of disconnect, because I was like, I don't know how to say what they're saying. I don't, it was really the language. I think it was the language that made me feel a little bit more disconnected. But I had my mom and my titis, and they made a point to be like, no, this is who you are.
Mm.
But in my head, because I wasn't fully entrenched in the culture every single day, I did struggle. I struggled. I'm like, am I Puerto Rican enough? Am I?
Mm-hmm.
You know? But I knew I was, because my last name, and that was always my
Mm-hmm.
connection. So I love that you put my maiden name in there, because that was always my connection. I would be like, I might not look Puerto Rican, I might
Mm-hmm.
not sound Puerto Rican, but when you see my name, that
Mm-hmm.
is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a young child, it didn't really mean anything to me. But then when I got to middle school, I started feeling like that is me,
Mm-hmm.
even if I don't speak the language. But if I learned it, I feel like I am all over the place, girl. When I started learning it in school, I sounded better than other people, and I was like, yeah, because I'm Puerto Rican, duh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so there were always these throughout my life, I always had people who were introducing me to the culture, keeping me connected to the culture, and then showing me that love, even though inside there were parts of me that was just like, I'm not good enough. I'm not,
Mm.
I'm not Puerto Rican enough, but I am,
Mm-hmm.
it's this weird,
Mm-hmm.
push pull thing. I'm not, but I
Yeah.
know I am, but I'm not, but I know I am. So my mom played a huge role in that, huge role. Um, she would make, like I said, speak to me. She taught me how to dance, and
Wow.
she dances I never seen a black woman dance like salsa, bachata, all everything. I just
Yeah.
never seen. And then I saw her, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. And that now dancing is my favorite thing to do. And
Aw.
when I hear the music, my mom and I, we danced at my wedding, and we danced to a song she liked, but then it stopped and cut to Suavemente.
Ah.
So it's just
Yeah.
that's part of, I'm so grateful for her, even though she's Black, she's not Puerto Rican. I'm grateful for her for teaching me those things, because
Mm-hmm.
those little pieces, even yelling at me in Spanish, dancing with me in the mornings on Saturday mornings, those little things, that was always my connection. And then
Yeah.
going to my aunt's house on the weekends. My titi Linda, when she saw the post, she was one of the first ones to share it. Linda Maura. So she was one. I was always at her house on the weekends, and just those are the people. Those are the
Yeah.
people that kept me connected, and didn't get me too far away from feeling who I
Mm-hmm.
am truly. I said a whole lot, but I don't know if I answered your
Uh,
question. I
yes,
don't
you
know.
did.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, you did.
long-winded.
It's okay. It's okay. But so when speaking on that, right, we're talking
Yeah.
about not being Latino enough, not feeling
Yeah.
Puerto Rican enough, not feeling this is something that definitely has come up a lot lately from other
Mhm.
individuals that I've heard about this. Um, and it saddens me in some ways, that somebody who's Afro-Latina or Afro-Latino or Asian Latino or white Latino, that they feel like that they cannot come into the spaces where people of color are in because they don't feel Latino enough.
Yeah.
And so we definitely have to do better at breaking those barriers, at really embracing them and welcoming them into our spaces, without judging them, without putting any kind of anything against them, period. Because at the end of the day, first of all, they came into this world not, Latino. They were a baby. Their parents were the ones who were the
Yeah.
bicultural individuals who fell in love and had this child. So, and how their upbringing was is also not their fault. If it was not really instilled into them, thankfully you had that opportunity, right? That your mom loved the Hispanic culture so much and then loved you so much that she wanted to make sure that she knew the Hispanic culture enough to be able to teach you both, to
Yeah.
not to just teach you the African American culture, but to make sure that you understood both. I have two nieces who their mother is African American. She is part Hispanic, but my brother is pure Puerto Rican. And so
Yeah.
they're Afro Latinas. And ever since they were born, I have been stating this to their mother and making sure that they understand that my nieces are Afro Latinas. They need to know about both cultures. And that to embrace that, and so my older niece, she speaks Spanish. She speaks some Spanish, and she's African American, and so and then she's a Scorpio like me. So Lord Jesus, help her and help me. But she's she's out there and she's like, yes, Titi, let's go. um,
I love that.
but it's really embracing that. So I try
Yeah.
to always help in that part, in speaking to them in
Mhm.
Spanish, or even just sending them items that may say, Boricua. When the whole Barbie thing came out, I, had them shirts made to Boricua Barbie,
Boricua
because
Barbie.
yeah, because
Yes.
they are Boricua. At the end of the day, they're
Yes.
Afro Latinas, they're Boricuas, and they should embrace that.
Yeah.
Um, and so lucky for me, I mean, I was born in Puerto Rico. I knew Spanish. Spanish was my first language.
Okay.
And then I came to the United States when I was 5. I did beginning to know a lot more English than Spanish. Spanish started kind of going away, but then I went back to Puerto Rico about twice, once during 7th grade, and then lived in Puerto Rico for the full 9th grade season. So because of that, that helped me keep my Spanish language and then
Yeah.
understand how to write it and read it more than I already knew. And then as I became an adult, I started working in spaces where I can speak both languages. And in being in those spaces and working with other individuals where it was Spanish, I was able to take in more Spanish, learning how to say certain words more
Mhm.
correctly than what I did. So it not only did I teach them, but they also taught me.
Yeah.
And then with just my family. But for the most part, unfortunately, I did not instill that into my kids. Just because their father speaks more English than anything, even though he understands Spanish, he didn't really speak it. His grandmothers did, and that's my complete fault for not teaching them more Spanish and helping them understand that. But and then now they navigate that, right? Like them not feeling Latino enough because they don't speak the language.
Mhm.
And just like how other youth feel this way. But in speaking about that, we were talking about breaking those, not just breaking the barriers, but the intersection of the Afro Latina, right? So at any given point, was there, you were saying about discovering yourself. It's very important that we discover ourselves, right? A lot of times we are in situations. Are you there with me,
Okay.
Ashley?
Oh no. Yeah.
Okay. Now
So you said,
it was frozen
oh,
for a second there.
yeah, yours too. Oh no. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and I can see you moving now.
Okay, good. Okay, so
Okay.
you said intersectionality at was there a point where so you were gonna have to probably cut
Yep.
there.
All right. So at one point, was there in that moment in your life where you were like, I feel more Latina enough now? Or is this something that you still struggle with?
Yeah. You know what? It was more so in high school and then I would say early college. I really felt connected. And I would listen, I had like the Puerto Rican flag jersey dresses. I was always and I still go to the Grease Bowl Festival, like
Hmm.
I always do, do those things because that helps me like that.
Hmm.
So in high school, I leaned into my Puerto Ricanness. right, if that's even something I could even say,
Yeah.
right? I leaned in, I
Mhm.
really did. And then that's where I like was learning more of the language and it started to come to me. And you know what I noticed? What I was realizing as we're talking, I think it's because the culture is so cultural. Like there's so
Mhm.
much, like there's language, there's dance, there's
Mhm.
food, there's, there's probably like slang, all of it, right? There's
Mhm.
so much that could make your experience as a Latina like different,
Mhm.
depending on how much of that you know. But like that's the thing, right? Because the culture is there's so much culture that when you don't know something, that's probably why you feel like not enough. Like
Yeah.
I could dance with the best of them, right? I can't maybe cook like the only thing I can make is some patatillos, but like,
Yeah.
I can do my a little bit in the kitchen, but like not having
Yeah.
the full pie filled in, right? Like I got some pieces of the pie filled in, and that I think that's probably what made me feel like not enough, right? Because I wanted to have the full pie. Like,
Mm.
I wanted to feel like
You could do it
yes,
all, all.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Like, and I could walk into a space like going to, the the Hispanic Women's League event
Mhm.
and like not feeling like there's a part of me that doesn't know what's going on because I hear tables
Mhm.
speaking a language that even though I might be able to pick up a word or two here, I don't know what they're saying, and I
Mhm.
couldn't say it back to them. I couldn't say anything back to them. So yeah, high school, I leaned in. College, I leaned in because I knew enough Spanish to be dangerous. So
Mhm.
at my job, they were like, "Can you take some Spanish phone calls?" And I was like, "Absolutely, anything, anything to get
Mhm.
me to like be in the mix,
Mhm.
So then I did it and like it was just so great. It was cool. And like I started thinking a little bit in Spanish, which was like amazing. And then
Mhm.
I tell you, then I took Italian in college. And like
Mhm.
because they're so similar,
Yes, very.
I started mixing them up. Like so then after that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
It messed you
Oh,
up.
yeah. Then also my husband and I, we did talk about like wanting to do um, like a program where
Mhm.
we learned Spanish together because there was a point where we were actively like trying to have children. And if it happens, we won't go that route. But if that
Yeah.
happens in the future, then we would want to be able to speak to them and teach them
Yeah,
that because that's something that I feel like is the biggest piece of the pie that I was missing. Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I
And
think, oh,
when
go
I
ahead.
wore my hair curly,
Yeah.
because when my hair was straight up until 2009, people were like, "Oh, you're black, you're white." You're like, "What are you? We don't know." But then once I started like embracing my curls, I was like, "This is who I am." So yeah,
I think it's important. So for me, growing up and even now as an adult, I've had many individuals who are like, so what are you? Are you Hispanic? Are you from are you black? Are you mulatto? Are you they said that I look like I'm from the Mediterranean
they don't
area.
know,
They don't
but then
know.
we're always trying to figure people out, right? We're
Yes.
always trying to categorize people.
Yes. And the first time I heard that, I was like, what? I was so
Like, how
confused.
don't you know?
Yeah, like how did because I've always just identified as Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
I never thought that anybody else looked at me as possibility of any other culture or any other race or ethnicity other than what I knew.
Yeah.
Um and I was like, oh, wow. I was like, they're not even sure. The only reason why they know is either because of my name. If you know the last name Tapia, you know that that's either from Puerto Rico, from Spain, or from Mexico. It's like
Yeah.
comes from somewhere over there. Um, or just when I start speaking Spanish, then they know that I'm
Like,
Hispanic.
oh, yeah.
Um, and so they knew that. And then I've also had the reverse. I had somebody one time tell me I didn't sound Hispanic enough, that my accent wasn't Hispanic enough.
Yeah.
that I sounded more Caucasian in that moment because I know how to speak.
Oh,
I know how to speak
how did that make you
articulately.
feel?
And that stunned because I was like, what am I supposed to sound like? Am I supposed to sound like Rosie Perez from back in the day where, I have an
New
accent and mira, lo
Yorican?
que lo que pasa a ti? And it's like, that's like, what am I supposed to speak with this very deep accent in order for me to
Yeah.
be Hispanic enough for you?
Mm-hmm.
And this came from a Caucasian man.
Absolutely.
So the ignorance is huge, plays a huge part of it.
Yeah.
But speaking on needing to know ourselves, we were talking about uh you mentioned at one point about really right that energy that you were saying that what you put out it comes back in, but also finding who you are as an individual.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we're raised in a bicultural household or in families like yourself, we may be raised with one more part of the culture than we're not with the other. And not saying that that's your case, but in other cases for other individuals, that has been the case. So then when you grow up as an individual, as an adult, you realize that you're missing something. You've always wondered, like there's this missing part of you that you've always wanted to find out what is going on and who am I? Who am I as an individual?
Yeah.
And so it's important that our listeners really hone in on the fact that they should find out who they are and where they come from, so that they feel completely full and
Mm-hmm.
love themselves before they go on to really say to the world who they are.
Yeah.
Um, because like yourself, at one point you felt not Latina enough, and there's others that feel not Latino enough in whatever spaces that they are. And that's probably why, because they've never educated themselves. Listen, I'm Hispanic, I'm from Puerto Rico, I was born in Puerto Rico, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with bomba and plena and all those dances, but do I know how to dance it? No. Have I always loved to want to learn that dance? Absolutely.
Yeah.
um I remember as a child, this was probably my first experience as being in a room where I was surrounded with a whole bunch of African American young, in my same age, young kids. And it was this dance teacher that was teaching a Caribbean dance. It was more African American culture, but it was very just Caribbean.
Yeah.
And from I grew up with that type of dance, with just watching it and wanting to learn it. And I put myself in that situation where I said, yeah, I want to be a part of this group. I'm Puerto Rican, I'm a person of color, I want to be in this. And all the other girls were not. They
Yeah.
were African American. But I remember I did so well, and this was also the teacher's fault, because the teacher really wanted, for some reason, this one girl to really like do the dance the way she wanted her to do it. And I apparently ended up doing the dance exactly how she wanted it. And I remember her telling the girl, how is it that the Puerto Rican girl can do it better than you? And
Oh,
you're the one who's African American. And
oh,
even though for me in that moment, I felt proud of myself because I was like, oh, yes, I got the dance right. Like that was my mindset. Like I didn't care about anything else. But then as I thought about that moment later in life, I was like, that was so wrong for you to have
yeah.
done that to that girl, because now it puts her not
In
liking me.
competition. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not liking me because I'm Puerto Rican, the competition of it all. And I
Yeah.
remember then the next time that we went back around, the girl, sure enough, she didn't even want me to take like that spot that I was supposed to take in the front, because she was like, no, I'm going to do it. Like, that's my spot. Because now she
Mm-hmm.
felt this competition with me and this kind of hatred towards me because of the way the teacher presented the situation. Instead of
Yeah.
the teacher just saying, hey, we're just going to move some people around and so forth. But she presented it that way. And that's where I talk about like we really need to do better in making sure that we are presenting it completely the way it needs to be presented. Um, and finding out who we are as
Yeah.
individuals, and not to be afraid
Yeah.
to look into that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but listen, the dance was a care was it might have been like a from an like I don't know. What I'm trying to say is our cultures are so much more alike than they're
Mm-hmm.
different. And I think shame on that teacher for downgrading you, like to say, oh, how can the Puerto Rican girl do it better than you? Because at the end of the day, like the African diaspora, right? And I know that there's native Puerto Rican, there, you know, there's so many different cultures that make up Puerto Rico, right? There's so many cultures, but African culture is a huge contributor to Puerto Rican culture. So
huge.
like, so this whole diaspora wars is so sad because that makes people feel like they can't find that identity. And that's probably why growing up, I didn't feel that identity. Like I didn't know what it is. I didn't know what I was. I didn't know who I was. And so to your point, to, you know, we have to know who we are before we go out into the world, but we have to know who we are so that we can go out into the world and tell the world, so that the world isn't telling us who we are. Right now, I think, like, for example, that teacher was telling you who you were, not knowing that you're Puerto Rican and Puerto Rican culture has African culture too. You know, so when you dance and when you move, you're gonna feel the vibe. You know, you're gonna feel the connection. So shame on her for just being miseducated and also for hurting both you and that girl, because that's not cool. Like, but identity, I've just learned that I am my own brand of all of these things. Like who I am is I'm Ashley Shantae Melendez-Middleton, okay? My husband would never be okay with me hyphenating my name, but that's what we're doing right now, okay? And I'm Black, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm me. You know, that is who I am. And I have amazing people in my life who did teach me my culture, who kept me connected to my culture, who helped me stay confident and connected to my Puerto Rican culture, no matter what. And I have amazing people like you, now that I know you, that understand that, like, it's not one way. Nothing is one way. Like, what? Oh, I'm not Black enough. I'm not Puerto Rican enough. Like, what is it? What does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm literally myself. And because I'm not meeting your goalposts, I'm not meeting, you know, what you expect me to do, like that changes who I am. No, I know who I am. Once you know who you are, you know what your values are, you know what you stand for, you can go out into the world and you can just be confidently.
Yes.
This is so good for me right now. Thank you.
I love it. I'm so excited to have you here. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And before we end, Ashley, is there anything that you would like to share with our audience members on embracing their Latino identity? And the reason why I say that is because, that I want to ask that, but before we do that, is both you and I come from where we were raised in these cultures, but also lived in white neighborhoods. So we learned to live in a culture that wasn't even our own.
Yeah.
Right. I know for me, I always my mom always made sure that we lived in better areas. She wanted to make sure she wanted a better life for ourselves and for her kids. And so we happened to always live in more predominantly white neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So we would always face those racial situations. But at the same time, I always found myself gravitating to my culture. So if there were individuals that were students who were in the school, that more of my culture, I would gravitate towards them because they looked like me. They were relatable. I could experience the same things they experienced. But I also I'd never deterred anybody that didn't look like me. So I had best friends that were white. I had best friends that were Asian. I had best friends that were Black, best friends that were Indian. I embraced all of everybody. Um, and I know you kind of had went through kind of like the same thing for yourself, that you know, in finding out who your Latina identity, while also living in the African American culture,
Mhm.
embracing both of them. But like you said, they're very much alike, very much
Yeah.
alike. So much culture in both of them, and a
Yeah.
lot of it is actually integrated into both.
Yeah.
And is really saying that. So based off of that, is there anything that you could say to our audience members to say, listen, maybe these are some steps that we can take as a community or you as an individual in accepting us as Latinos?
Yeah. Oh man. Uh, I can only think about my experience,
Yeah.
right? And like so growing up in high school, I did gravitate toward, we didn't have a lot of Puerto Rican people at our school, but
Mm-hmm.
like, I did make those friends, and hence why I'm even here talking to you because of Shayna, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was that person that connected with everyone. And I think this isn't going to be very clear one by one, step by step type thing, but I think the best way is to continue to show up as best as you can, like based on what
Mm-hmm.
you know. Like, I know myself to be this way, so that's what I'm going to do in the world. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And then because I know what I've experienced, I'm going to then go out into the world, and I'm never going to make anybody else feel bad or feel shame or
Mm-hmm.
feel less than who they are, right? Um and I think I do some diversity facilitation work. And I think I do that same thing when I'm talking in white spaces about those things. Never to make someone feel shame,
Mm-hmm.
never to make them feel like they're not good enough or like who they are is bad. So that's the biggest thing that I could say. Knowing what we've gone through, knowing that no matter what place on the spectrum you land of Puerto Rican enough or Latina enough,
Mm-hmm.
no matter where you land is good enough, and the same for the other person. So if
Mm-hmm.
we create space for people to feel that, to
To feel
feel
welcomed.
welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we just said
We said the
collective
same time.
consciousness. Yes. To
Mm-hmm.
feel welcome, to feel loved, to feel enough. Like, we have to be that first.
Yes.
Like, it'll be like, oh, oh, you're not. No. Like, let me show you. you know?
Mm-hmm.
But like, who's like reaching out their hand and being like, okay, let me show you, or I don't care, it doesn't matter, like, you're still my Puerto Rican sister, okay? Like,
Mm-hmm.
something like, just create a space where people feel
Yes.
safe,
Yes. I
create a
agree.
space where people feel seen, feel safe, feel connected, even if they don't represent the full pie. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I think also, and whenever there is a space that may not have individuals that look like you,
Mhm.
or it may not have Latino representation as much as they should,
Yeah.
even though it is a space of color, that for it to not deter you
From
to be in
being
that
first.
space.
Yeah. Like, be the
Be-
first, it's okay.
yes, because you can be that change that that organization or that company or that event
Yeah.
needs in order to open up those doors for other Latino representation.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's so good. I remember I had a mentor, and he was like, you might not want to be, and this is like management. He's like, you might not want to be in upper management, but who you are
Mm,
is the type of manager that is needed, right? Like,
yes.
so your brand of Latina
Mm-hmm.
is needed.
Mm-hmm.
Your brand of whatever, insert your thing
Yes.
here, is needed. Like, who you are is needed.
Mm-hmm. There was a show that I used to watch back in the day, and I remember one, and this will forever stay with me.
Yeah.
And one thing that it said, and it was talking about the person's creativity. but it reminds me of, it resonates even with what we're speaking about. And it said, your art matters. And it's your Latina, your identity matters.
Mm-hmm.
And embracing that and walking in that and walking in that power and walking in that confidently
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that you belong in that space. Because there is a reason for us being everywhere that we are. It is a reason why I'm here right now. There's a reason why you're there right now. There's a reason why individuals in the world are exactly where they are right in this moment. There's a blueprint for our lives.
Yes.
Therefore, if you are put in a space where we say, we want you here, go to that
For a
space,
reason. It's for a
even if it
reason.
feels uncomfortable.
Woo! Are we in church?
I feel like I'm getting goosebumps. I don't
Oh,
know where
this
it's come
is
from. I
so
think I opened the window
good.
too much. Maybe there's some
No, that's so good. That was so good.
but
Yeah.
yeah, we have to be able to, and I say this all the time. If there's a table that does not have individuals that look like you buy the damn table and you create it your damn self and you create
Yeah.
that space.
Yeah.
Stop being the type of person that complains about what you don't see out in the community.
Yeah.
Instead, make the space yourself.
Yeah.
Create the table, buy the table, bring the damn table, and you sit there until everybody joins you.
Mm. Oh my gosh, you're so inspiring.
Oh.
You are. You are. Because I'm like, what do I need to do? What do I need to,
Where do we
I
go
need,
from here? You're
so
like, I'm
good.
throwing everything at you. Here, just have it.
It's so good. So good. This was beautiful. I'm
Thank you,
grateful.
Ashley. And I'm very grateful to have you here. And again, in honor of Women's History Month, thank you so much for everything that you're doing in this world, being a part of that change, being a catalyst and paving the ways for many other individuals that look like you,
Yeah.
that are relatable, and that want to see individuals like yourself in these spaces.
Yeah.
It's important for our younger generation to see individuals like ourselves in these spaces so that they know that they can make it here one day.
Yeah.
Um, for them to be encouraged, for them to be inspired and motivated to make sure that even when they have those naysayers in their path, they're stating that you're not going to make it or that you're never going to do this and so forth, because you will have those individuals that will just come in your life trying to throw those curveballs
Yeah.
to try to get you to be discouraged, to
Mm-hmm.
follow something that you can do.
Yeah.
Um, and it's important that we don't, we stay our path, we stay, I always say, just keep whatever is your focus on your true north.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your true north at that focus.
Yeah.
Focus on your end result, which is what Latinas Evolving Model has always been, is something I've been saying for years. That it's just, and what that means is that whatever that goal is, whether it's a short-term goal or a long-term goal, is that you put that focus, that is your tunnel vision,
Yeah.
and you stay the focus, stay the course until you reach that. And there may be some things that come in the way, but everything is meant for you to learn from,
To grow. Yeah.
and to grow and to evolve.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
Oh my
thank you
gosh.
so much.
Well, in honor of Women's History Month, I want to hold space for you
Oh,
because
thank you.
you're welcome, because you're doing amazing things. And I am grateful to know you now. And I'd love to connect with you in other ways outside of this,
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm so grateful. You're amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. And if anybody needs to get a hold of you with your company, please tell them how they can
Yes.
get in contact with you.
Okay, so I do have a website. It's kind of under construction, but it's live.
Okay.
It's called Midspiration. So it's not the Middleton Center, it's Midspiration.
Ooh.
Midspiration. So Midspiration, like inspiration.
Okay. I like
Mid
that.
midspiration.com. I do also have a podcast. It is on all podcast platforms. It's called Figuring It Out with Ashley Middleton, and that drops every Friday. And I'm also on all social platforms as Ashley Shantae, ASHLEYSHONTEA, TikTok and Instagram.
All social media outlets, ladies and
All
gentlemen.
social media outlets. Okay. But yeah, that's where you can find me. But I do have, my email is themiddletoncenter@gmail.com if anybody did want to send me an email or anything like that. But I don't know, it's still a baby business. So if I can support anybody in any way, I would love to.
Thank you. And congratulations on your podcast. That's awesome.
Thank
I have
you.
to make sure I follow that as well.
Thank you.
And everything that you're doing. So I'm so excited, and I'm very inspired by everything you're doing with Midspiration as well. And everything that you are looking to do, as we've had our conversations off of here.
Yeah.
So I know about some of those things, and very excited to have you. But thank you again for being on Cafecito Tempranito con Tayrin, which airs on Nueva Era Radio every Sunday at 10 a.m. and will be on our YouTube channels on the unedited version.
Amazing. This healed a part of me. This healed a little Ashley. So thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody.